Jasmine Crockett just exposed something shocking: Melania Trump's secret lover, and it all unraveled on live TV. Yes, what you read in the title is exactly what happened, and it sent Melania into a wild, uncontrollable rage within just 36 seconds. But here's the real twist: who is the man she was hiding? Like, share, and subscribe, this gets deeper. It all started with a calm, routine congressional hearing, or at least, that was the plan. Jasmine Crockett had her documents neatly stacked, her questions prepared, and a look of quiet determination on her face. Across the chamber, Melania Trump sat beside her legal team, poised, unreadable, but slightly tense. Everyone thought this was just another public inquiry. But nobody was ready for what Jasmine was about to drop, and certainly not Melania. Jasmine, known for her fierce questioning and bold presence, took a brief pause before lifting a sealed envelope in front of the cameras. "This," she said with calculated clarity, "contains verified evidence of Melania Trump's secret relationship, a relationship that began during her time in the White House and continued under everyone's noses." The room fell completely silent. Gasps filled the chamber. The press surged forward. Melania's expression cracked for the briefest moment, a twitch of the eye, a sudden tension in her jaw. She whispered something to her attorney, who immediately leaned in, clearly rattled. Within 36 seconds, the former First Lady, usually composed and unbothered, stood up, knocking over her chair in the process, and stormed out, muttering angrily in Slovenian. The internet erupted. Social media lit up with hashtags like #MelaniaExposed and #CrockettBombshell. But beyond the headlines, one question began burning in the minds of millions: who was this alleged secret lover? And how did Jasmine get her hands on such damning evidence? What unfolded over the next hours was not just a media storm. It was a stunning unraveling of secrets that had been buried deep within the Trump family's private history. Could this revelation change how we view Melania forever? The silence after Melania's exit was deafening. Journalists stared at one another, unsure if they were still witnessing a government hearing or the start of a historic personal scandal. Jasmine Crockett, however, remained composed. She slowly placed the envelope back on the desk, giving the world just enough time to stew in the shock. Then she leaned forward into the mic and said, "Let the record show, this is not hearsay. This is evidence collected from internal communications, travel logs, and encrypted texts. All verified." The cameras zoomed in, and the room began to hum with the low sound of tension. Jasmine motioned to her assistant, who passed her a file. Inside were photographs. Grainy, yes, but unmistakable. One clearly showed Melania in an upscale restaurant in Prague, seated across from a man wearing a dark suit and sunglasses. Another caught them stepping into the same elevator in a luxury hotel, time-stamped August 3, 2018, during a time when Donald Trump was reportedly overseas on diplomatic business. The room shifted again, this time with an audible ripple of whispers and murmurs. Jasmine continued, "The man you see here is not just anyone. He is a former Russian interpreter assigned to the Trump delegation, and according to travel manifests and leaked surveillance logs, he and Melania shared more than one private encounter across Europe between 2017 and 2020. Gasps. Phones lit up. Twitter feeds scrolled in real time as hashtags shifted from speculation to scandal. #MelaniaLover and #TrumpBetrayed began trending in less than an hour. But the story wasn't just in the photos, it was in the context. Jasmine, pausing briefly, explained further. "You might ask, why does this matter? Why is this relevant today? Because this is not merely about personal affairs. This is about national security. If a member of the First Family was involved in a private, concealed relationship with someone tied to international intelligence, that presents risks. And we have reason to believe that communications may have been compromised." That single sentence changed everything. Suddenly, it was not about an affair. It was about potential espionage, about secrets traded over silk sheets in five-star hotels, about whispers exchanged behind closed doors that could have influenced presidential policy. And yet, as damning as it sounded, Jasmine never mentioned the man's name outright. "We are withholding the full identity for now," she said, pending further investigation and confirmation from intelligence officials. But the press was already on fire. Every major network ran breaking news banners, and former intelligence officers were pulled into urgent panels. Some speculated the interpreter in question had long since disappeared. Others claimed he had defected, and that this entire affair was more than just romantic, it was strategic. Meanwhile, inside Trump circles, chaos erupted. Donald Trump, though no longer in office, posted a furious tirade on Truth Social. "Fake news! Melania is the most loyal woman on earth. Another witch hunt! Crockett should be ashamed." But what caught everyone's eye was what he didn't say. He didn't deny the photographs. He didn't even mention the man in them. Melania remained silent for 2 full days after her walkout. Her spokesperson released a brief statement saying, "Mrs. Trump is disturbed by the reckless and false accusations made without basis or respect for privacy." But public opinion was already shifting. Some loyalists stood by her, but many others began to question what had always been seen as a distant, complicated marriage. Inside congressional halls, calls for a deeper probe began. Jasmine was now seen as more than just a bold representative. She was holding a match to a fuse that had long been hidden beneath layers of influence, money, and public image. Then came the real bombshell, a leaked letter, allegedly written by the interpreter himself, addressed to Melania. It was handwritten, emotional, and dangerous. In the letter, he referenced private meetings, her fear of being watched, and even hinted at his regret for the role I played in something bigger than us both. It ended with a haunting line. "They knew about us. They always knew. And still you came back." As this letter surfaced, pundits and experts debated its authenticity. Handwriting analysts, linguistic experts, and security officials were brought into primetime debates. But no one could ignore what it implied. This affair, if real, may not have been just about passion, it may have been about control. And Melania, knowingly or unknowingly, may have been entangled in a much larger game. With public trust eroding and media pressure intensifying, it became clear that this was no longer a side scandal. This was front page, top story, legacy defining. And yet, despite the flood of evidence, photographs, timelines, and whispers from anonymous sources, one question continued to burn at the center of it all, unanswered. Why did Melania risk everything for this man? And what exactly was she hiding from Donald all along? The release of the handwritten letter changed everything. Until that moment, the public could still pretend it was just rumor, just tabloid noise wrapped in congressional drama. But the tone, the vulnerability, the deep emotional threads in that letter pierced through every political filter. This was not merely a scandal. It was personal, raw, and dangerously entangled in power. Within 24 hours, analysts had compared the handwriting to archived documents from the Russian interpreter, whose name still remained officially undisclosed. Intelligence insiders, under condition of anonymity, confirmed to major networks that the man once worked closely with U.S. and Russian diplomatic envoys during Trump's presidency. The connection was no longer a theory. It was a pattern backed by dates, digital trails, and now a voice, his. And yet, the silence from Melania grew louder. She had not returned to the public eye since storming out of the chamber. Her spokesperson refused all interviews, citing legal advisement. But as pressure mounted, a single name began to surface across media platforms: Alexei Morozov. He was a quiet figure during Trump's early visits to Eastern Europe, often seen in the background of state dinners and diplomatic meetings. Fluent in 5 languages, Morozov had served under multiple administrations and was considered a trusted aide by both American and Russian intermediaries. But after 2020, he disappeared, reportedly retiring from international affairs. Now, it appeared his exit was less retirement and more erasure. Investigative reporters dug deeper. Hotel staff from Prague came forward, confirming Melania had visited the city multiple times during the years in question. One concierge even recalled seeing her and a man matching Morozov's description, laughing like old friends, during an unregistered late-night visit. And then there was the elevator footage, real, time-stamped, and now verified by third-party forensic teams. At this point, the Justice Department had no choice but to respond. A formal inquiry was opened to determine if any classified information could have been compromised during Melania's private interactions. Jasmine Crockett, now hailed by some as a national whistleblower, was called in again to provide her full evidence package. Under oath, she confirmed that she had received anonymous tips, first dismissed as gossip, but later supported by documentation that was too detailed to ignore. Behind the scenes, the Trump legal team began preparing for damage control. Sources reported heated arguments between Donald and Melania, some of which were leaked to gossip outlets. "You told me he was gone," Trump allegedly shouted in one recording. "You swore it was over. But was it ever over?" That question loomed as journalists uncovered more letters, allegedly written by Morozov to Melania between 2019 and 2021. These were stored on a private cloud account under an alias, but metadata linked them directly to her personal laptop, the same one seized during the investigation into her nonprofit's financials months earlier. Suddenly, two separate legal stories were merging into one explosive narrative. One email read, "You always said he would never know. But I told you, power has ears, and truth has claws." The implication was clear. Melania had confided in Morozov, not just about her emotional state, but potentially about internal dynamics within the Trump circle. Whether she revealed anything that posed a risk to national security was still under review, but for now, the optics were catastrophic. Meanwhile, Trump's political advisors scrambled. Some urged a public display of unity, a joint appearance with Melania, perhaps even a televised interview. But Melania declined. Her inner circle insisted she was not ready to speak. This vacuum of response only fueled more speculation. Was she negotiating immunity? Was she being silenced by her own team? Or was she genuinely grappling with guilt, caught between a secret love and the legacy of a marriage built on calculation? Then came the confrontation. Melania, after weeks in seclusion, was spotted entering a private building in New York where Donald Trump was known to conduct quiet meetings. Paparazzi swarmed the area. Inside sources claim what followed was not reconciliation, it was interrogation. Trump allegedly demanded answers, not for the cameras, but for himself. "Did you love him?" he asked. The answer, according to an insider present, was chilling in its simplicity. "More than I ever loved you." That line, whether true or embellished, exploded across media outlets. For Trump's base, it was betrayal. For others, it was liberation. A woman long seen as silent and shadowed was finally voicing her own truths, even if they tore down a kingdom. And in the midst of it all, Jasmine Crockett dropped one final thread. In a second hearing, she hinted that additional surveillance tapes existed. "We have reason to believe that further documentation, including video and recorded audio, exists, evidence that will make the truth undeniable, not just uncomfortable." The world braced. Cable news coverage became nonstop. Editors pushed out books in real time. Documentary teams followed every witness, every staffer, every statement. The White House, though no longer connected officially to the Trumps, faced daily questions about how deep these past entanglements went. And Melania? She vanished again. No public appearances. No social media updates. Just a single message on her official website. "I have always lived by my own code." What that means may now be clearer than ever. The truth is not always clean, but it is always mine. For a woman often criticized for her silence, it was the loudest statement she had ever made. Still, one question remained unresolved, not in the files, not in the footage, not even in the letters. What exactly did Alexei Morozov have over Melania? And why was she willing to risk everything to keep him hidden? That final question, what did Alexei Morozov have over Melania, hung over every newsroom, every panel, every conversation. Even now, with a mountain of circumstantial proof and a public frenzy that refused to die down, the core of the story still felt incomplete. What drove a woman known for her cold poise and guarded life into such a risky, emotional entanglement? Was it blackmail? Love? Or something even darker? Then, without warning, a leak emerged. It came from a freelance journalist working on an independent documentary, someone who had managed to obtain a cache of encrypted messages allegedly pulled from Morozov's backup drive. Among the files were several recorded voice notes, and one in particular, dated April 2019, broke the entire story wide open. In the message, Morozov's voice was low and deliberate. "You once told me," he said, "that you never expected your life to become a performance. That every smile was rehearsed, every photograph calculated. But in our time together you were real. You told me secrets, not political, but personal. And I promised I would never use them. But I need you to be honest with yourself. If you walk away now, it will not be me who speaks. It will be the silence between us." It was not a threat. It was not extortion. It was heartbreak. It was two people caught in something far more human than espionage, a relationship forged in isolation, secrecy, and emotional voids too deep to fill. And for Melania, it explained everything. Her distance, her silence, her constant refusal to fully play the role of First Lady. She had found a sliver of herself in Morozov, not as a tool, not as a symbol, but as a woman. When this recording was authenticated by two independent agencies, public perception began to shift again. This was no longer just about deception or betrayal. It was about survival, about a woman navigating the cold machinery of political life, seeking comfort in the one place no one expected her to. But the political world, of course, had no interest in emotional nuance. Pressure on congressional leaders intensified. Demands were made for Jasmine Crockett to release everything she had. Crockett refused, citing national security. "This is not about embarrassing individuals," she said in a press conference. "This is about identifying the line between personal privacy and public accountability. And we must walk that line carefully." Still, subpoenas were filed. Intelligence committees demanded closed-door briefings. Former Trump administration officials were called to testify, not about Melania directly, but about any possible breach of security during her unscheduled travels and unauthorized meetings. What they found was troubling, not a definitive crime, but patterns of miscommunication, protocol avoidance, and willful blind spots. And in the shadows of those hearings, Donald Trump made a move. He released a carefully worded video, speaking from Mar-a-Lago, saying, "I have always believed in family. Loyalty matters to me more than anything. What my wife has done or not done, that's between us. But let me be clear, this distraction is just that, a distraction." But it was not enough. Because, as political strategists noted, it was not only about loyalty. It was about the legacy. The cracks in the Trump family image were now permanent. What had once been controlled chaos was now spiraling scandal. And no one could unsee what had been exposed. Then, finally, Melania reemerged. She did not return to press conferences or interviews. Instead, she released a long-form personal statement, an open letter published exclusively in a European magazine known for privacy-conscious features. In it she wrote, "The world has spoken enough for me. Now I speak for myself. My marriage was real. My choices were mine. My mistakes are mine too. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not ask for sympathy. I only ask that people understand this. I have been many things in my life: model, mother, wife, first lady. But never free. And for a short time, with him, I tasted what freedom might have felt like." The reaction was electric. Some called it brave. Others saw it as deflection. But one thing was certain: she had shifted the narrative, even if just slightly, from scandal to reflection. Jasmine Crockett, when asked to respond to Melania's letter, simply said, "Every story has more than one truth. But that does not erase accountability. If boundaries were crossed that endangered this country, emotional complexity cannot be a shield." In the following weeks, the investigation concluded without criminal charges. There was insufficient evidence to prove any national security breach. But the damage had already been done, politically, personally, publicly. Melania retreated from the spotlight again, this time permanently. Donald resumed his campaign efforts, but now with a fractured base. Crockett rose in public esteem as a fearless truth-seeker, though she faced fierce backlash from loyalists. And Alexei Morozov? He was never found. Whispers suggest he vanished deeper into private life, somewhere in South America or Central Europe, far from the reach of governments or headlines. The story faded slowly, but never entirely. It became one of those modern myths, the kind that lived on in documentaries, conspiracy forums, and late-night television. And to this day, one simple question still haunts those who watched it all unfold. Did Melania choose love over loyalty, or was she simply choosing herself for the first time? And so, what began as a sealed envelope in Jasmine Crockett's hand ended with a First Lady's haunting confession, a vanished lover, and a nation left questioning everything it thought it knew about power, privacy, and partnership. Melania's story was not just about scandal, it was about silent choices made behind golden curtains. Some call it betrayal. Others call it bravery. But one truth remains undeniable. The most guarded woman in American politics cracked open her mask, even if only for a moment. If this story gripped you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts below.